Have you ever wondered how much the world spends on military power? It's a question that often lurks in the back of our minds, isn't it? Well, that's precisely what we're about to uncover. Welcome to our exploration of global military expenditure. When we talk about global military expenditure, we're referring to the total amount that nations around the world allocate towards their defense. Now, this isn't just about buying tanks, aircraft carriers, or state-of-the-art weapons. It's a much broader and deeper concept. This expenditure includes all government spending on current military forces and activities. It encompasses salaries and benefits for military personnel. Imagine the millions of men and women in uniform across the globe, each earning a paycheck for their service. That's a significant portion of this expenditure, but it doesn't stop there. Operational expenses are another substantial part of the equation. This includes everything from fuel for military vehicles to food for the troops. It's the cost of keeping the machine running, so to speak. Then, of course, we have the arms and equipment purchases. From rifles to drones, from submarines to satellites, the technology and weaponry that a military force wields come at a high cost. Another vital facet of military expenditure is military construction. This encompasses building and maintaining military bases, installations, and facilities both at home and abroad. Next up is research and development. In an era where technology is advancing at a breakneck pace, militaries around the world are investing heavily in developing new technologies, strategies, and capabilities. Finally, we have central administration, command, and support. This includes everything from strategizing and planning to logistics and communication systems. It's the backbone that allows military forces to operate effectively and efficiently. Now, why is this important? Understanding global military expenditure gives us insight into where resources are being allocated and how they're being used. It helps us understand the priorities of nations and how they perceive their security needs. So, as we continue to peel back the layers of this complex topic, we invite you to join us on this journey of discovery. Stay with us as we dive deeper into the military expenditure of various countries. Let's kick off by examining the top spenders in military expenditure. In the global arena, the United States, China, India, Russia, and Saudi Arabia are the high rollers when it comes to military spending. Each of these nations allocates a significant portion of their gross domestic product, or GDP, to their respective military budgets. Starting off with the United States, it's no secret that Uncle Sam spares no expense when it comes to defense. The U.S. military budget is the highest in the world, with a staggering amount of their GDP dedicated to defense and security. This spending is influenced by a myriad of factors, including the nation's role as a global superpower and its commitment to maintaining a state-of-the-art military. Moving on to China, the world's most populous nation. China's military expenditure has been steadily increasing over the years, mirroring its rapid economic growth. The country's strategic ambitions, coupled with its territorial disputes, are among the factors that fuel its high military expenditure. Next up is India. As the world's largest democracy, India allocates a significant portion of its GDP to military spending. The main factors influencing this decision include ongoing border disputes and the need to maintain a robust defense infrastructure. In the case of Russia, the country's military spending is shaped by its geopolitical ambitions and the need to maintain a strong military presence in the global arena. Despite economic constraints, Russia prioritizes its military expenditure to uphold its status as a formidable power. Finally, we have Saudi Arabia. The kingdom has one of the highest military expenditures as a percentage of GDP among nations worldwide. This is largely influenced by its regional security concerns and the need to safeguard its vast oil reserves. As we delve deeper into these figures, it becomes clear that military expenditure is not just about defense. It's a reflection of a country's strategic objectives, economic capabilities, and geopolitical ambitions. As we can see, the top spenders command a significant portion of the global military expenditure. On the other end, we have countries who spend considerably less on their military. Let's take a journey to the lower end of the spectrum, where military expenditure looks a lot different. In this diverse world, we find nations that have taken a different route, one that involves less military spending and in some cases, none at all. Among these nations is the beautiful Central American country, Costa Rica. Since 1949, Costa Rica has been without a military. Yes, you heard that right. No army, no navy, no air force. So, where does their defense budget go? Well, the government channels these funds into sectors like education, healthcare, and environmental protection, focusing on building a peaceful and prosperous society. Then we have Ireland and Austria, two European nations that spend less than 1% of their gross domestic product on their military. You might be wondering, why so low? Well, both countries have adopted a policy of neutrality. They're not looking to flex their military muscles on the world stage. Instead, they prioritize diplomacy and peaceful conflict resolution. In Ireland's case, their military, known as the Defence Forces, mainly undertakes peacekeeping and humanitarian missions. They believe in a soft power approach, using influence and persuasion instead of force. Meanwhile, Austria, nestled in the heart of Europe, has a long-standing tradition of neutrality. Its military is primarily defensive, focusing on protecting the country's sovereignty and population. But why do these countries choose to spend so little? The reasons are varied and complex. Some are due to historical decisions or geopolitical factors. Others are driven by a commitment to peace, diplomacy, and social welfare. In a world often dominated by discussions of military might and defense budgets, these countries offer a different narrative. They remind us that strength can be measured not just in terms of firepower, but also in terms of education, healthcare, and peaceful diplomacy. These countries show us that high military expenditure isn't always a necessity. Now, what about those countries that are neither at the top nor at the bottom? Today, let's dive into the realm of the in-betweeners. Those nations that aren't the biggest spenders on military defense, but certainly aren't at the bottom of the pack either. We're talking about countries like Germany, Canada, Australia, and Brazil, which each have their unique approach towards military expenditure. Germany, for instance, is a fascinating case. Despite having one of the world's largest economies, it doesn't spend as much on defense as you might expect. Why? Well, it's partly due to the country's history. After the Second World War, Germany adopted a policy of restraint in military matters, which continues to influence its defense spending today. Moving on to Canada, a country with vast geographical boundaries to defend, yet it doesn't have the military expenditure to match. It's a matter of priorities. Canada has always focused more on peacekeeping missions and international cooperation, rather than large-scale military operations. Australia, on the other hand, is geographically isolated. The country's military expenditure reflects its need to maintain strong defense capabilities, despite its distance from traditional global hotspots. Australia's spending is influenced by its strategic alliances and the need to protect its own shores. And then there's Brazil. As a rising global power, Brazil has been gradually increasing its military spending. However, it's a balancing act. The country must weigh the need for defense against other pressing issues like poverty reduction and infrastructure development. Each of these countries offers a lesson in military expenditure. They demonstrate that a country's defense budget isn't just about raw numbers or global rankings. It's a reflection of that nation's history, its strategic priorities, and its global relationships. It's a complex equation that takes into account a multitude of factors, from geography and economy to politics and international relations. These countries show us that there's a balance to be found in military expenditure. So what have we learned from this exploration of global military expenditure? We've journeyed through the labyrinth of military spending data, gaining insights into the complex world of defense budgets across the globe. We've realized the vast disparities, witnessing countries that allocate an enormous chunk of their wealth to defense, while others spend just a fraction. This discrepancy is not just a matter of economic capacity, but a reflection of the diverse priorities, policies, and geopolitical realities each nation faces. We've seen the top spenders, countries with staggering military budgets that often exceed the entire GDPs of other nations. These are the global powerhouses, wielding their military might as a tool of influence and deterrence. Their defense spending is not merely a reflection of their wealth, but a strategic decision influenced by their global ambitions and security concerns. But we've also taken a look at the other end of the spectrum, at countries with more modest military budgets. These nations often prioritize other sectors such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure. This more moderate approach to military spending reflects a different set of priorities and circumstances, demonstrating that military might is not the only measure of a nation's strength. We've also explored the in-betweeners, countries that strike a balance between defense and other sectors. These nations often grapple with the challenge of allocating resources in a way that ensures security without compromising the welfare of their citizens. Through this analysis, we've seen how military expenditure is not just a number on a page, it's a complex equation that involves a range of factors from geopolitical tensions and security threats to economic capacity and policy decisions. The spending patterns we've discussed have far-reaching implications, affecting everything from international relations to domestic policies. Remember, military expenditure isn't just about defense. It's a reflection of a country's priorities, policies, and global standing. As we continue to navigate this complex world, let's keep these insights in mind, understanding that behind every defense budget lies a story of a nation and its place in the global arena.